All right, so everyone's been buzzing about electric vehicles lately, but today we're taking a deep dive into a company that's been a bit under the radar, Rivian.
Rivian, they're making electric trucks and SUVs, right? Yeah, I feel like I remember there's a lot of hype a while back, but things have been pretty quiet lately.
Exactly, and that's why they're looking at this. It makes this whole deep dive so interesting. We're looking at a recent article from The Motley Fool. It's titled, Prediction, This Long-Awaited Catalyst Could Drive Rivian Stock Higher in 2025.
Oh, wow, 2025, okay.
Yeah, so the question is, with giants like Tesla and Ford already in the game, do they really have what it takes to really take off?
Well, this article points to a move Rivian just made, and it could be a real game changer, especially considering, where the EV market is at right now.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's unpack this. You're talking about them opening up orders for their electric delivery vans, right, to any fleet size, not just these massive companies like Amazon.
You got it.
I seem to remember they had some kind of exclusive deal with Amazon before, did they?
They did, yeah, and that deal was huge when it was first announced. I mean, it was seen as a validation of their technology and a sign that, they were serious about the EV market. But yeah, since then, things have been pretty quiet.
So opening up those orders, what does that tell us? Are they shifting gears, moving away from that initial focus on consumers, maybe?
That's a great question. It could definitely be a sign that they're diversifying. The article actually compares this move to what Ford did with their e-Transit van, the one that's specifically targeting businesses and fleets.
Interesting.
And get this, their commercial vehicle division at Ford, it's actually more profitable than their traditional car business right now.
Wow, really? So maybe Rivian sees an opportunity to tap into a market that's potentially more stable, more profitable than, just selling directly to us, the consumers.
Exactly. And I think this shift makes a lot of sense when you consider the broader EV market trends, right? Like electrification isn't just happening in personal vehicles, it's happening across all sectors.
Yeah, that's true.
So businesses are looking to, reduce that carbon footprint, save on fuel costs, and electric vans, well, they're kind of the perfect solution for all that.
So this move by Rivian, it could put them in a good spot to capitalize on all that growing demand. But, and I can't help but think about this, the Amazon deal. If they're shifting focus, what happens to their relationship with Amazon?
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. The article does mention that their relationship, with Amazon, it seems to have cooled a bit. They're no longer bound by that exclusivity agreement. And, Amazon then exploring other options for their delivery fleet.
So that's a potential risk for Rivian then. I mean, what if Amazon just decides to sell off their stake in the company? Wouldn't that hurt their stock price?
It could, yeah. Especially in the short term. Remember, Amazon owns about 16% of Rivian. That's a pretty significant chunk.
It's a lot.
But the long-term impact, that really depends on how Rivian executes their strategy moving forward. Like, if they can prove they can succeed independently, attract a wide range of fleet customers, then they could potentially, offset any negative effects from Amazon pulling back.
Okay, so it's a gamble, right? A high-stakes one. They're betting they can make it in the commercial EV market, even without Amazon's full backing.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that main question, right? How significant is this as a catalyst for their stock in 2025? It's tough to say for sure, but it definitely has the potential to be a major turning point for them.
Yeah, they're at a crossroads, this potential game-changing opportunity, but also all this uncertainty with Amazon. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. And I think this whole situation really highlights a crucial point. The EV market, it's still in those early stages, lots of fluidity. Companies are experimenting, partnerships are shifting. The competitive landscape, it's constantly evolving.
So it's not just about having the best tech or the biggest factory. It's about adapting, making those right moves as the market develops.
You got it.
Okay, so just to recap for our listeners, Rivian's move into the commercial EV market could be a major catalyst for their stock, but there's also that uncertainty with Amazon. Sounds like 2025 could be make or break for them. They've got the potential to take off, but also some big challenges. Before we move on to their competition, though, I think we need to take a closer look at their overall strategy, see if we can identify some more strengths and weaknesses.
I agree. Yeah. Understanding their broader approach is going to give us a much better idea of their potential for, long-term success.
Awesome. So let's dive into their tech manufacturing capabilities, their overall financial picture. We've got a lot to cover. So let's get started.
Welcome back. All right. So as promised, we're going deeper into Rivian's strategy. And I think a good place to start is with their technology.
Perfect, because having great vehicles is one thing. But, in the EV world, the tech behind them, that can make or break a company. So what's Rivian working with that makes them stand out?
Well, one thing that sets Rivian apart is their skateboard platform, they call it. It's essentially the base of their vehicles, contains the battery, motors, all the important stuff. But the really clever part is that it's modular, like building blocks.
So they can adapt it for different types of vehicles without starting from scratch every time.
Exactly. So you want a pickup truck, you take the platform, tweak the top, need a delivery van, same platform, different configuration. This gives them flexibility and speed when it comes to developing new models.
So it's not just about how cool their Arva T-Truck looks off-roading. It's that underlying tech that could give them a real advantage long-term.
Right. And speaking of advantages, their battery tech is worth noting. They're using lithium-ion batteries, but they're really focused on high energy density, meaning, more range, faster charging, all that stuff that's essential for making EVs practical for everyday use.
But isn't everyone working on better batteries these days? What makes Rivian's approach different?
Well, you see, while a lot of companies are just sourcing batteries, Rivian is investing heavily in their own research and development. They're not content to just use what's out there. They really want to push the boundaries of what's possible with battery tech.
That's a bit of a risky move, though, isn't it? I mean, research and development, that can get expensive, and there's no guarantee of success.
It is risky, yeah. But it also shows just how serious they are about controlling their own destiny, Like, they understand that battery tech is crucial for the future of EVs, and they want to be leading the charge, so to speak, when it comes to innovation.
I see your point. Okay, so platform batteries. What about software? That's a huge part of the EV experience these days.
Absolutely. And, Rivian is definitely putting a lot of emphasis on software and connectivity. Their vehicles have advanced driver assistance systems. They can receive over-the-air updates. And their infotainment system, it's designed to be super user-friendly. It's all about creating a connected experience for the customer.
So they're combining the ruggedness of their vehicles with the kind of tech we expect in our smartphones.
Exactly.
I think I'm starting to get a clearer picture of their strategy, combining innovative technology with a focus on a specific kind of customer. But it sounds like they're facing some pretty stiff competition, right?
Oh, absolutely. The EV market, it's incredibly competitive right now. And Rivian, they're going up against some major players. Like on one side, you've got those established automakers, Ford, GM, you know the ones, deep pockets, decades of experience.
And on the other side, you've got those new EV startups, Lucid, Fisker, attracting all that attention with their sleek designs and fancy tech. So where does Rivian fit into all of this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think Rivian is trying to carve out their own niche. They're not trying to be a mass-market brand like Tesla or just solely focus on luxury like Lucid. They're aiming for something in between, A premium brand appeals to people who value both performance and sustainability.
I can see that, yeah. Their vehicles have a certain ruggedness, but they're also clearly designed with tech and luxury in mind. But I think it's time to address the elephant in the room again, Amazon.
Ah, yes. The partnership that launched 1,000 headlines.
Exactly. And we talked about how things seem to be cooling off between them and how that could be a potential risk for Rivian. But let's flip that around. What are the risks for the other players? What should they be worried about when it comes to Rivian?
Well, for the legacy automakers, I think the biggest risk is underestimating Rivian. These companies, they've been around for ages. They've seen competitors come and go. So they might be tempted to dismiss Rivian as just a niche player, one that won't really pose a serious threat.
So they could get complacent, fall behind in the EV race.
Exactly. And for the newer EV startups, I think the risk is more about differentiation. Rivian has a pretty strong brand identity, a clear target market. So those startups need to be careful. They need to make sure they stand out, not get lost in all the noise.
So it's a battle for attention, for investment, and ultimately for market share. And Rivian's right in the thick of it.
They are, and I think that's what makes them so interesting to follow. They're not just another car company. They represent a new way of thinking about transportation, sustainability, all of that. Their success or failure could have a huge impact on the entire industry.
Okay, so we've talked about their tech, their competition, and that big question mark around Amazon. But there's another crucial piece we haven't really touched on, manufacturing.
Yeah, because having great tech and designs, that's one thing, but can they actually build these vehicles at scale?
Exactly. So let's talk about their factories, production capacity, all those challenges they might be facing getting these cars on the road. So we've spent this deep dive really getting into all the details about Rivian, their tech, their strategy, the challenges they're facing, all that. But I kind of want to zoom out a bit now.
Yeah, to the bigger picture.
Exactly, because their story is just one part of this massive shift that's happening. The whole EV revolution.
Right, and it's a revolution that's going to have ripple effects way beyond just the cars themselves.
So for our listener, paint that picture for us. What does this shift to electric vehicles really mean? like in our day-to-day lives?
Well, on a practical level, just imagine cities with cleaner air, right? Fewer gas guzzlers on the roads, and we'd be less reliant on those fluctuating oil prices, that's for sure, which means fewer economic headaches for everyone.
Right, so environmental benefits, potential for more stable economies. But you said this goes even deeper.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Our entire infrastructure, it's built around gas-powered cars.
Yeah, that's true.
Gas stations everywhere, oil refineries, even the way our cities are laid out, all of that will have to change.
So it's not just swapping out our cars. It's a complete rethinking of how we live, how we get around.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because that kind of disruption, well, it creates challenges, but also a lot of opportunities.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, challenge-wise, we need to build a massive network of charging stations, right? And that takes time, investment, figuring out the logistics of where they all go.
Makes sense.
And then there's the whole question of the materials for those batteries. Can we get them ethically, sustainably?
Yeah, we don't want to solve one problem just to create a whole new set.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the people whose jobs are tied to the old way of doing things. Mechanics, gas station workers. There needs to be a plan for them as the industry changes.
Right. It's like any big technological shift. There are always going to be some growing pains along the way. But you mentioned opportunities too.
Oh, yeah, tons. Think about all the brand new industries popping up around EVs, battery production, recycling, all the software for managing charging, all the tech that goes into autonomous driving. It's huge.
So it's not just about cars anymore. It's a whole new economy being built around them.
Exactly. And for investors, well, that's where things get exciting, but also risky.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. There's potential for big returns. But picking the right companies, the ones that will actually be around for the long haul, that's the tricky part.
It's like a gold rush, right? There's gold to be found, but you got to be smart about it.
I like that analogy. So bringing it back to Rivian, we've talked about their potential, but they're in a tough market, that's for sure. What are some specific moves they could make to really solidify their position?
It's like we're their advisors now, giving them the secret formula for success.
Haha. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I do think there are a few key things they should focus on. First, that production scale-up we talked about earlier. They've got to nail that. Demand is high, but if they can't meet it, well, that just creates frustration, missed opportunities.
Right. It's finding that balance between scaling quickly but not sacrificing quality.
Exactly. Second, they can't let up on the battery tech research. I know it's expensive, but whoever cracks the code on those next big breakthroughs, it's a game changer for the whole industry.
It's like the space race, but for batteries.
Ha, I like that. And third, Rivian should be actively looking for those strategic partnerships, ones that actually add value to what they offer.
Like what?
Well, maybe working with charging networks, making that experience smoother for their customers, or even teaming up with energy providers, coming up with some innovative solutions.
So it's thinking beyond the car, building a whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And finally, this one's a bit harder to measure, but it's important. They need to stay true to who they are as a brand, that rugged, adventurous, tech-savvy image. That's what sets them apart. That's what makes them Rivian. They can't afford to get lost in the crowd.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the big takeaway is this. We're at a pivotal moment. Not just in the car industry, but in how we think about our relationship with technology, with the planet. The choices that companies like Rivian make, the choices that we make as consumers, they all have an impact.
It's like we're all writing the next chapter of this story together.
Exactly. And it's a story with challenges, definitely. But there's also so much opportunity for innovation, for positive change, for building a future that's both exciting and sustainable. That's something worth being a part of.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. And to everyone listening, keep those questions coming. The more we explore, the more interesting this journey gets. To ACR.